Jim Abler, he's a state representative from the Ramsey County area. Chris Dahlberg, he is the chair of the St. Louis County Board. That's Duluth. Monty Marino on the end there. Monty is a family farmer and a small business owner. Julianne Ortland, state senator representing the southwest metro area. Philip Parrish, naval reservist, previous high school teacher, information technology specialist. Harold Chudlick, retired Army chaplain. You can sit down.
Thank you very much. This is my granddaughter, Raina. She was born on New Year's Day last year. You can go ooh if you want. We're pretty excited about it. So, pretty sweet. She came, and she we saw her at Christmas time. She was beginning to talk, and so her first words were, "Where was that?" Because she was born into massive debt. She's lost liberties and freedom she never even knew she had. And we were chatting at Christmas, and she said, "Grandpa, do you know what the biggest three problems are in this country?" I said, "Well, what are they?" "Well, it's $17 trillion debt, it's $1 trillion in the end of the year. That Obamacare mess, which I'm so angry about, which is ruining 1/6 of our economy. And the fact that our president thinks he's King George, and he can just change laws that he even signed himself. That's pretty good, Raina." And so she inspires me, and that's what I'm here to work on. And the short version, only 2 minutes, is that I'm in a position to help with those first two things personally, since I know how to cut. I've cut billions of dollars out of healthcare and entitlement spending. I know how to cut $1 trillion. That's to begin to get out of that deficit. I am leading expert in the legislature, certainly in our party and probably overall, on the whole healthcare matter, and I'm in the best position to pick up the pieces of what's ever left of Obamacare by the time I get there in November. And in this president thing about he can just do whatever he wants. How many people here like the Bill of Rights? Kind of a good thing. Any amendments? Well, you better worry about those because he can suspend any one of those at his wish. And I want to invest about 15 of my seconds up. This little thing here, that the IRS says you can't talk. Really? Just see what's happening already. There's your First Amendment going away. And so this is the kind of thing I'm going to work on. I've got 15 years in office. I am a veteran. I know how to actually get things done. I've been very productive. We'll talk some more. What's that, 15 seconds? Okay. And on the back of you got a card from me, which is a picture of my family and a picture of Raina, which a lot of people don't have a copy of. Put this on your fridge, pray for us. On the back, you'll see the kind of work I did. And we'll talk some more. But I'm so happy you're here, and you are the most awesome bunch to speak to. Thank you.
Once upon a time, a long time ago, in a galaxy not too far away, there was a donkey that was smiling and laughing. We all know that we are bankrupt. In 1913, the United States had no debt. Then it passed the Federal Reserve Act. Now we are $17 trillion in debt and over 200 trillion in unfunded liability. As your senator, we the people will repudiate the debt. As your senator, we the people will repudiate the debt. As your senator, if you'd like to join me now, we the people will repudiate the debt. We were promised wine, fresh wine, new wine, and all that they've given us is cheap whiskey. And you and I don't have to put up with that. And we aren't going to put up with that. I'm here to ask for, because I need your vote in the caucuses, not only in the caucuses, but in the conventions that come up, in order to defeat and waylay the incumbent and the slanderer and thief and their followers, so they will no longer be in positions to harm America, mankind, Minnesota, and you and I. And in the words of the old country song writer, Gene Autry, who was a famous country singer, you might say that I'm back in the saddle again.
Coming out tonight, thank you for what you're doing. I'm Philip Parrish, and I'm running for U.S. Senate. I made a very heartfelt decision 16 months ago because of some events. I'll let you do the math. 16 months ago. I'm born and raised here. This is my home. Born and raised in rural Minnesota. Somehow, by God's grace, I ended up being a teacher, very blessed teacher, an administrator. And then, in the midst of it, I decided to go crazy and join the Navy, which it wasn't crazy at all. It was the best thing I've ever done with my life, other than my wife, Victoria. So, I'm on duty more than off in the last 13 years. I'm coming back and forth from the European theater. I've been living and working in more than 12 countries. And what I'm seeing going on, we're out there fighting for our Constitution, for our way of life. And yet, about 3 years ago, I'm starting to look around me, and I'm starting to see on the web, I'm starting to see in emails, I'm starting to see in chat and Twitter, things that really concern me. So 16 months ago, anybody know what date I'm talking about? Go ahead, say it. Say it for me because I don't want to get in trouble. Thank you. We've got some people that need to be held accountable. Now I'm going to tread softly, and I'm going to mind my P's and Q's so I don't get in trouble because I am a U.S. Navy reservist. I am an officer in our military. This is our country. There is nothing needed except this document that is referenced in this handout. You can get on that table. Talk about it, teach our children, and help me hold these people accountable for their behavior.
And I say Happy New Year to you all, 2014. And this is the year when we, the citizens of the state of Minnesota, are going to remove Al Franken from office, right? We've been waiting for this since 2008, right? And people want you to forget that that guy only got 42% in the last election. He and Coleman tied at 42%. There was a guy named Dean Barkley on the ballot, remember that? And that means that 58% of Minnesotans have never voted for Al Franken. And I can't think of a more urgent race in the entire nation, can you? Al Franken has been President Obama's yes man from day one. He was never concerned about our interests here in Minnesota. He was the 60th vote for Obamacare. And such a proud guy on that vote, what has he done to correct the problems that he created? The chaos that he has created in our insurance markets. He's done nothing to step forward to defend his own law when President Obama undermined it with an executive order. He doesn't care about you and me, Al Franken. If he did, he wouldn't have voted to take away our gun rights under the Second Amendment in the Judiciary Committee. He voted for every one of Dianne Feinstein's amendments to take away our gun rights in the Senate Judiciary Committee. Everyone. Our Al Franken is the chairman of the Privacy Subcommittee in the Judiciary Committee. Did you know that? He's had access to all the information about the NSA's collection of our information when we have our cell phone records, internet visits, texting, all of our emails on the internet. Al has had access to all that information. He's known about it all along as the chairman of our Privacy Subcommittee. Do you think he respects our Fourth Amendment rights against illegal search and seizure? He doesn't respect those rights at all. And because he has left our Fourth Amendment rights in jeopardy, he has also challenged our First Amendment rights. Because when we are concerned, we the citizens and the residents of our nation, as innocent as we are presumed to be, if we are concerned about the government spying on us, we're less likely to speak freely under the First Amendment. Al Franken has participated in the threat to our constitutional rights, and that's why he must be removed from office. And you and I, as citizens of the state, are going to have to do more than we have ever done before to combat what's happening in Washington. We can't allow Washington to pick our next candidate. We can't allow Washington's special interests to control this election. And so I'm here tonight to ask you for your support and your help. I distrust Washington just like you do. And so I know it's going to take more than one conversation to earn your trust, but I'm here to ask for your support, and let's continue the conversation. It only begins tonight. But we are on the road to recovery, November 4th, 2014. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Jim Baker. I want to say thank you for moderating tonight. I appreciate that. I want to say to the Rochester Tea Party Patriots, thank you for having this venue, having the opportunity. To all Tea Party organizations across the state, I want to say thank you. Welcome to all the audience too. It's good to be here. And as far as, I want to say thank you to the Tea Party organization, because you're there to defend the Constitution. And that's the supreme law of the land. And I think that's important. And you know, I'm running as a Republican, but defending the Constitution is not a Republican issue. It's a Republican, it's a Democrat, independent, it's beyond party politics. And I appreciate the fact that you hold elected officials accountable from both parties. And yes, we have to talk about issues because we can't waver on that. NSA spying is a troubling issue. And whether it's at the national level or whether it's done locally at the county level, if you're in Olmsted or wherever, we have to be very troubled. And we have to watch elected officials when they start to backtrack on this. That's very important. The Second Amendment also, we have to be careful on that. Watch out so we don't have the camel's head underneath the tent. That's very important. Why am I running? Well, I'm a county commissioner, boots on the ground from northeastern Minnesota. And yes, there are some conservatives up in northern Minnesota. If we are going to beat Al Franken, we can't just win Republicans. We have to win the old Reagan Democrats out there, and we have to win the independents. My district is blue-collar Democrats. When Obama got 70% of the vote in 2012, I got 60% of the vote. I was able to get the building and trades guys to endorse me in gals. Why? It's because I support mining, I support job creation up there, and there's starting to be this faction up there. And I'll tell you, that's going to be the dividing line up there. That's how we win this election against Al Franken, because he's banking on that as a stronghold. And yet they know Chris Dahlberg, as a county commissioner up there, is a strong conservative. That's going to be important. The other big issue that I ran is I started a little later than Jim in the family side, so I have a daughter that's 9 years old. But I was just shaking my head at the fact that we got a $17 trillion debt out there, and then we have Obamacare with 1/6 of the economy. And the issue is, am I out of time already? Well, that was quick. I guess I'm going to have to talk to you a little bit later on the other issues. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Monty Marino. I'm from the Stillwater, Minnesota area. I also am a candidate for the United States Senate. The reason I'm running for the seat is I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of professional politicians and the idiots running what's going on in Washington. You can say, Monty, you can walk in, and I've been a small business owner for 25 years. I've owned multiple businesses. Right now I'm raising American bison. We've had internet business, gas station, convenience store. I started with 5 years. I sit and look at the state of our economy today, and let me just preface it with one thing before I go any further. Is many people would say, well, you need to be an expert in regard to many of these issues. Do you? I want to remind you that the ark was built by a novice. You know where I'm going. And the Titanic was built by experts. Okay? We need some red-blooded individual out here who's going to stand up and say, I've had enough. Frank Luntz, Dr. Frank Luntz, if you all know who he is, did a study not long ago, and he asked he had an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with 10 statements on it, and was asked, which one of these statements do you most agree with? 72% of the people picked one statement, and that statement was, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it any longer. That's where I'm at, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know where you are. But in Washington right now, number one, we've got to cut the budget. I'm a father, I've got 5 children, I've got 4 grandchildren, and maybe many of you do as well. And we need to cut the spending in Washington. We need to cut the malarkey. When Julianne Ortman was just talking about Mr. Franken infringing on our 4th Amendment rights by coming in and violating in virtually search and seizure, going through your phone records, your emails, etc. Your First Amendment rights are in jeopardy because now they're cutting your speech rights, and simultaneously your Second Amendment rights. Last summer, bill number 139 of the U.S. Senate, Al Franken voted no, that you can no longer have Second Amendment rights, and simultaneously gave rights to the United Nations that they would be able to come in, ban your guns, confiscate your guns, and if they deemed you to be a threat, to imprison you and your family, i.e. FEMA camps. We'll have a lot more conversation to go. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you.
This will be one with a 1-minute answer.
and it's on campaign funding. Campaign funding. Al Franken has raised millions of dollars from out-of-state donors in Hollywood, in the Washington, D.C. area. Fellow candidate Mike McFadden is rumored to have raised a lot of money as well. What is your plan to raise enough money to compete?
Well, I think, money is one thing. Another thing that you're looking at is ideas. When you look at, years ago, there was a gentleman named Paul David Wellstone, if you remember that name. Paul Wellstone ran against Rudy Bosch, was outspent by 7-1, and Paul Wellstone won. Why? Because he ran on a group of ideas. You don't need to outspend Al Franken. All you need to do is grab a couple issues like the Second Amendment issue and take that and run that past the people of Minnesota. You get people down here in Rochester, the 1st Congressional District, 2nd, 7th, and 8th, you will win by such a landslide, it will actually astonish you. They can't manufacture enough votes in the Twin Cities to give this election to Al Franken. Al Franken's going down. The money that will be raised, myself personally, I have friends who have a lot of money, and they are hooked up with a lot of multimillionaires and billionaires from across the country. They're all independent business owners. None of them are lobbyists. And in raising the money, we will raise the money, we will compete, and we will beat Al Franken, not just in money, but in the ideas. Thank you very much.
Okay, Monty, off to Jim Major here. Thank you, Monty.
Well, thanks. And I want to remind you also that Norm Coleman lost with $19 million, and he was commended for his fundraising prowess. So it's not about how much money you raise; it's about the product you put up there. And Al Franken's not going to be easy to beat. He's not going to collapse. He'll be rehabilitated about August. He'll save somebody from a burning building. He'll cure cancer or something. And so he's not going to roll over easy. I want to tell you that. Which is why you want to like somebody who actually already knows how to get the swing vote and how you hold the base. I've been to over 200 places around the state, 200. And part of my message is we better stick together at the end. Because that's what happened with the Coleman thing. That's what happened when we've lost races in the past. And so that's the key. Someone like me who has a record of a lot of successes, a lot of results, a lot of working with people, getting stuff done, has less places to attack. And I just know you can't buy this seat. And if you want to run the Romney race again in this state, see how that worked for you. But it's going to be a Main Street kind of oriented person, which is me, a person who actually knows how to patch asphalt and fixes their own roofs. And I'm a chiropractor in my day job. I know there's a blue collar town. Someone who can connect to the people and is not afraid to work. That's my method. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Harold?
Yeah, it's important that the Republican Party and the Tea Party stay together, as well as drawing in the independents, the Constitutional Party, and other parties who are, most of them are former Republicans. The Republican Party is lost, and Minnesota is lost, and we've become lost. But that doesn't mean we should abandon the party. We have to, like a ship, get it going in the right direction. The Republican Party is the dough, and I believe the Tea Party is the yeast, and that will not. That combination will not be able to be stopped. Even though Al Franken and George Soros and their money, the hero of Chappaquiddick, Barney Frank, Mark Ritchie, that great counter of the ballots, not to mention Warren Buffett, Acorn, Chuck Dodd, and Warren Buffett. We will take them all.
Thank you, Harold. On to Philip.
I started this campaign with nothing except my wife and a little bit of savings. And I plan to run this campaign on a penny here and a penny there. And one of the teams that I've been blessed with has advocated that, Phil, you're going to be that candidate in the green truck, driving around, blaring the halls of Montezuma from coffee shop to coffee shop. Hairstylist shop, I'm not going to get a hairstyle, but I'm working for it. And that's what this campaign is going to be. When I hear about campaign earning in the millions and trillions of dollars, I think about my mom, right here in Wisconsin, Minnesota, working 2 to 3 jobs, trying to make ends meet. We still didn't have enough to eat. Those people, do you realize how insulting it is to you and me when people are spending billions of dollars on a campaign that's supposed to be a group of people getting together to represent the people? I don't understand it. So we're going to do it one penny, $1 at a time.
Thank you, Philip. Julianne?
Trustee reports me that we are raising money very effectively, and we will have all the funds we need to effectively challenge Al Franken. I'm very proud of the donors that we have. There are so many that are $3 donors. And I can tell you, we will be and have been extremely careful with those dollars because they're so hard-earned. They don't value that in Washington. Why don't they value it in campaigns? When someone goes into their pocket after they've paid all their bills, paid all their taxes, supported their family, saved for college, saved for the future, and then donated $3, I'm so proud to have that donation. It's a big contribution. So I value all of them. I also want you to know that we are running a very effective campaign. The 18 to 24-year-olds that we can win in this election because they never voted for Al the last time, they're not going to be persuaded by a lot of money. Social media is not expensive. And we are running a very smart, technologically sound campaign with the micro-targeting that was very successfully done by the Democrats. We are putting that together in my campaign already. I don't know whether the party is or not, but our campaign is effectively pulling together the models for micro-targeting the votes we need to win this election. Thank you.
Thank you, Julianne. Chris?
Thank you very much. You know, we're Minnesota nice, but not Minnesota naive. So all the money that Franken has isn't going to be able to wash away his problematic 5 years, and it's been an abysmal failure. So that's what we do is we take the message to him. You know, we have a $17 trillion debt, Obamacare coming down on us, and what is Al Franken concerned about? He's thinking maybe we should sick the IRS after more private citizen groups. So we start talking to that message, we're going to win. I'll tell you, how we win is the way I won in Duluth, Minnesota. I had the Democratic Party breathing down my neck. I had AFSCME, the government employees down on me. All of that pressure, and in a blue-collar district with the right message, you can get out to conservatives and win with 60% of the vote. And that's the only way we win this. I mean, it's one thing to win in a Republican district, but we got to win in northeastern Minnesota, and we got to win in the rest of greater Minnesota, as well as the Republican metro areas. The other thing, finally, to finish on, is that I've only been 1 quarter fundraising, but we've already reached into the 6 figures, and I think that's an important milestone because money still, there is a factor in there. Thank you.
Chris, just stay up there. You'll be first on the next question. Chris?
Yep.
Stay up there.
Okay.
You'll be first on the next question. And you'll find that this is the sequence I have laid out, so we aren't moving the mic around so much. This is a yes/no question. So the mic will move pretty fast here. Chris, will you abide by the GOP endorsement?
Yes or no?
Yes or no? Or no comment?
I haven't made the decision yet.
Okay. Monty?
At this point, yes.
Pass it on to Jim. Thank you, Monty.
I respect the process a lot. I'm working hard to earn it. There's a 95% chance that I will vote for primary.
Thank you, Jim. Harold?
Yes, I will respect.
Harold, thank you. Philip?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Julianne?
I've not made that decision yet.
Julianne, you're up next for this. Next yes or no question. Are you in favor of term limits for Congress? Yes, no?
I think there are higher priorities, like a balanced budget amendment.
Okay, pass it on to Chris, if you would, Julianne. This is, are you in favor of term limits for Congress?
I wouldn't bring it forward, but I would support it.
Monty?
Absolutely, yes.
Over to Jim.
12 years in the House, 12 years in the Senate. You get 2 terms in the Senate, 6 terms in the House, you're done after 12 years. Thank you.
Jim?
It depends on the limits. It seems reasonable these people shouldn't be there their entire working years.
Harold? Thanks, Jim.
I would have to study a little bit more about how would we put it into effect. Would it be another,
Yes, no?
What?
Yes, no?
Yes or no? No.
All right. Philip?
Yes, term limits.
All right, stay up there, Philip, you're next. Philip, you have a 1-minute question. Topic is Obamacare. And here's the statement. Obamacare is proving to be a disaster. Premiums are higher, deductibles are higher, doctors have limited availability of doctors, it's inhibiting job growth, workers are seeing their hours reduced. It goes on and on and on. Some people say fix it, some say to fund it, some say repeal it and start over. What do you propose we do with Obamacare?
Repeal it and start over. What did Obama do last week?
Changed it.
Talked about catastrophic insurance. So the 40 million that were uninsured allegedly before, now we all of a sudden can have a program to insure 40 million people. Guess what they could have done from the beginning? Do you realize every single one of you could have a check for $3,500 in your pocket, in your household? Every household that could have a $3,500 check from just what they spent on a broken internet system.
Pass it on to Julianne. Thank you, Philip.
I'd say dismantle it, repeal it, anything you can do to roll the clock backwards. But I think we have to do it as effectively as we possibly can. And so whatever we can get the folks to agree to, we've created chaos with what's happened with Obamacare. And so we absolutely need to turn the clock around. But I want to point back to the fact that Minnesota had the 3rd highest insurance rates in the nation. We were already doing here what the goal was for Obamacare. That's why we never needed it. We had MinCare. And so we had affordable and accessible health care to all Minnesotans without forcing any other Minnesotan to buy something they didn't want. That's what the national model should have been all along, with sliding scales. And so what we really need is a United States Senator that will advocate for what we want here in Minnesota and telling Minnesota, instead of telling us, what Washington is going to impose on us. And so yes, we need to eliminate Obamacare, we need to roll the clock backwards, and we need to get a hold on a government that wants to continue to intrude and encroach on our lives through mandates, rules, and regulations. It's time to go through and repeal them.
Thank you, Julianne. Chris?
Thank you. I'm a very strong local government 10th Amendment guy, and the federal government has no business in health care. One of the things I bet you everyone in this group can agree with is let's look at what the vision is. We all want to help people that have pre-existing health care conditions, correct? And we don't want people's livelihoods to be wiped out. I do estate planning, I know how that goes. So that's what the vision is. But look what we had. We had 93%, I think, coverage. We had some pretty good systems, but maybe we had some small gaps in Minnesota. And yet now look at what the condition is. Because of Obamacare, we have the largest middle-class tax increase in history because people's premiums are going up so much. Now people who had insurance, the middle class are in crisis because they're losing the insurance. So the solution keeps getting back, and this is where I am as a county commissioner, because I'm not going to Washington to try to consolidate more power out there. I'm bringing it back home to the people to set the table for Minnesota for success. And one of the things I really believe is Minnesotans can solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Monty?
Well, let us remember, it didn't totally get rid of all the jobs. There were 16,000 new IRS agents hired to help you understand Obamacare and to help you pay your premium. And if you don't believe it, they will come and visit you. Okay? What I think you do is you remove Obamacare, get rid of it, and allow competition from insurance parties across state lines the way it should have been the entire time.
Thank you, Monty. Jim? Jim's next. Always to Jim.
This is where I spend all my time in my professional life and in my legislative work, and this is hardly a 1-minute question. And it doesn't respond it's not responsive to a slogan. Our chance to repeal it expired with the Supreme Court decision, and I'm not getting on to get elected as president. Just to tell you the truth, and I'm sorry that's how it seems to me. The president wears it like a coat. It is a shambles. Minnesota didn't need one bit of it. And whenever you pass one thing with all one party, especially when they're as crazy as those people who did this thing, you wind up with this kind of thing. And those of us in office said this was going to happen. All about the MNsure, we predicted it. The fact that they were going to have a big deficit in what they tried to pay for with all this free stuff for people, we said, we predicted it. $300 million deficit in Minnesota because of just what they did last year. I told them that. And so this is where you need somebody who knows what they're doing to pick up the pieces. It is going to be a mess. You got this president 3 more years. Sorry to say that. And so that's part of why I want to get out there, so I can pick up the mess and make sure you can keep what you have, which is your choice of doctor, your choice of insurance company, your choice to be as healthy as you can be in Minnesota, and I wish you had more time. Thank you.
Jim, thank you. Harold?
It would be my pleasure on your behalf to put Obamacare to rest quietly and with the least trouble possible. It's not really, Obamacare is not really about health care. It's about control. It's about socialism. And you and I have the rare opportunity in our history to defeat the Marxist-Leninist empire in Minnesota and America, not with guns and bloodshed, but through the ballot box. We can join the founding fathers and their courage and their strength and say no to the pharaohs and to the tyrants. And then we can raise our heads up very high. Thank you very much.
Harold, thank you. This is another question with a 1-minute answer. It's on jobs. The Obama economy has been a disaster for jobs. The percentage of the working age population that is working is the lowest that it's been since the Carter administration. What is your plan to get people back to work?
Well, to get people back to work, I think to a certain extent we're just going to have to hold tight. He's there for another 3 years. But if he doesn't have the majority, I will do everything in my power on behalf of you to stop him and to stop the damage he is creating. For the new jobs, I think part of the idea that I mentioned before, the third thing, how will we fund the federal government? We'll do it through tariffs, and we'll do it through commodity fees. And one thing we have to do is bring the jobs home. We used to be a country that was in charge of our manufacturing. Then with free trade and CAFTA, we gave it to all different countries and the big corporations. And the big corporations ended up taking jobs overseas. So I think we have to get back towards America and what's good for America, not what's good supposedly for the world.
Thank you, Harold. On to Philip.
Bringing jobs back to Minnesota means good leadership. Good leadership works themselves out of a job and lets people manage themselves, govern themselves. Today I had an opportunity, one of the first companies that accepted a request to meet with them in Minnesota Wire in the Twin Cities in St. Paul. The team reached out to them because of the excellent things that I've been hearing about them. They're a group of people that are doing really good things about getting the job done right and getting out there and finding a way to keep jobs and keep moving forward. So what does a leader need to do? A leader needs to get out there, talk to people, have a relationship with people, have a relationship with business owners, and actually let them do their job. The federal government has no business in micromanaging you as business owners. Some of you are probably here. They have no business micromanaging you. So we need to let you do your job and not get in the way.
Thank you, Philip. Julianne?
Let's be clear, the government does not create jobs, does it? No, we create the jobs. And so we have to insist that the government stop spending all our money so we can do that. We need to have a government that lives within its means, as we did in the state of Minnesota by balancing our $5 billion deficit without raising taxes. We have a $9 billion budget gap every year from Congress. They authorized $3.8 trillion in spending in 2013, but they only had $2.9 trillion coming in. That's a $900 billion budget gap in 1 year. When you add in the $85 billion that the Federal Reserve has been spending in so-called stimulus every month, that's almost $2 trillion a year. That's our hard-earned income. And so when Minnesotans and Americans keep more of our hard-earned income, and if government could cut back so we could do that, we would invest it more wisely than government every single day of the week, and we would get a bigger return. And so with that debt ceiling increase in October of 2013, our spending went up $409 billion, our national debt. National debt went up $409 billion in 1 month. That equates to $3,500 per American household. Imagine what we could do with that money to grow the economy and grow jobs.
Thank you, Julianne. Chris?
Businesses across Minnesota, whether it's in northeastern Minnesota or all the way down to Rock County, they want to create jobs. They want to get people employed. But the problem is that the bureaucratic regulatory system is just stopping them and grinding them down. And Senator Franken has absolutely, it's against his ideology to even try to get in there and intervene. And that's the number one thing we can do, is get the government bureaucrats, the regulatories out of the way. And I'll give you one example. Up in my area, we're trying to get polymet. We're trying to get a mining permit up there for new mining. You know, it's taken longer to get a mining permit up in northeastern Minnesota than it did to get a man to the moon. And that was 1960s technology. So we are absolutely, do you wonder why India and China are taking over? And that's the one thing that I can do. And I can also work across the aisle, because there are Democratic senators who don't share Senator Franken's view that we can work with. And that's one of the things I've done in northeastern Minnesota. That's why the Democrats, not only in Duluth, but up on the range, say, hey, I know he's running as a Republican, but he's a Republican we can support. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Monty?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is someplace where I have created more jobs than anybody who's in the White House. Okay? The first and foremost thing you have to do is get the government out of the way. It's quite obvious that the government is doing everything they can to stifle and stop job production, job growth. When you look at America, there are plenty of jobs ready to go, but our government continues to stand in the way. I don't expect the government to stand up and do anything for me. I expect them to get out of the way. But what are they doing? They are running interference. They are standing directly in front of 140,000 jobs, good paying jobs at the Keystone XL pipeline. There was 44,000 people pumping oil in the Gulf of Mexico. The government told them to go home, and they're at this point filing bankruptcy and collecting food stamps. I'll tell you where I stand, ladies and gentlemen. As your U.S. Senator, I will lead the charge to throw this man out of the White House, and I'm talking about impeachment. I will lead the fight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monty. Thank you, Jim.
You know, this is just the finest experience to get to be up here with a group like this and in front of a group like you. You know, it's I just enjoy the moment, and it's a pleasure to be an American, free to speak. Still, the IRS hasn't cut that off. You know, President Obama and I have a thing in common. We both want to run my life. And, and so Al Franken is doing everything he wants, everything Harry Reid wants. And by the way, the government has no role in creating a job. It just gets in the way and mucks it up. I have 2 small businesses, and if they had their way, they get smaller every year. We do our best to hold up against regulations. I want to tell you one secret, though. Some of the regulations that have been brought forward are supported by the bigger businesses because the little ones can't compete. So beware. It's not always just one group or the other. And I want to also warn you that you pass a law that's this long, and then they make rules, and then they implement the law with a bunch of regulations and people that make opinions. And so it isn't even always what you think you're passing. So help us figure it out, and obviously you all think that it's madness for the government to screw up with our businesses. So thank you very much.
Jim, you're up next. This will be another answer question. It's on the minimum wage. Quite simply, what is your position on the minimum wage? And are there situations where you would see that you would vote for it?
Actually, we were up in Hackensack, and there was a guy at Fiddles and Joe, what was his And he said the minimum wage went through, he pays the people more than that, but if it went through, he would, there's some parts to it. With tips, they get like 11, 12 bucks an hour, but he would have to close. And if you look at the small businesses in particular, it's going to ruin them. Our whole caucus stood against that. And we tried to find some way to moderate their thinking and how about, and they're just bent on this, as though somehow if we establish a wage, everybody's going to be wealthy. I was on a task force to eliminate poverty, which sounds like a joke already, and somebody at the task force said, if they just had more money, they wouldn't be poor.
I'm sorry. Harold.
I think with that question and what we're dealing with is the, something that's called the law of unintended consequences. And also, every law that is passed, the budget committees run it through, and they how much it's going to cost, and that'll be deferred costs in the future. So the law of unintended consequences, as we get back to the minimum wage, the minimum wage, it sounds real good, but it's injuring those who need to be trained, and we have no skill at all, who businesses would probably like to have or would take under their wing and train them, but the unions will not allow that. The law of unintended consequences.
Thank you, Harold. On to Philip.
The federal government has no business micromanaging your business. It is about trust. And how insulting can anyone get? How arrogant and narcissistic can anyone get, no matter their academia or experience, to think that every one of you, because of some bad companies over the years who exploited and manipulated people, are all bad in exploiting and manipulating people? Whose responsibility is it to help people? It's people, neighbors, standing next to each other, having relationships with them, allowing them to make decisions, and not taking away their dignity. Why is the federal government messing with the minimum wage? It has nothing to do with helping the poor. Nothing to do with it at all. So step away from it and have some trust and relationship with people. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Julianne.
Well, it's the employees and the smallest businesses that really will take a hit with an increase in the minimum wage, because the increased cost of doing business gets passed along in higher prices. Or it creates a disincentive to competition, because it's harder for those smaller businesses to compete with those bigger businesses that have to continue to raise wages. And it often means lost jobs. So I think that it's a self-defeating effort to raise the minimum wage, but we all should be very wary and concerned about this effort. Because I've talked to my kids and other younger employees in the age range of 18 to 24 years old, and they think that increasing the minimum wage will help them. They think that it will mean more income to them. And so we all have a lot of work to do to educate these younger Americans to help them to understand that those increased costs just get passed along, and it just makes the cost of living go up. We have a lot of work to do to educate them. My daughter works, or did work, at Target, and she didn't understand why there was so much income tax being taken out of her paycheck, and she thought she should get a minimum wage increase, and she thought that that would help. And when we talked about where those income taxes were going and what she was paying for, services that she didn't even want or need and would never use, she had a real understanding then of why what we really need to focus on is reducing income taxes and allowing people to keep more of their hard-earned income, incentivizing people to work hard.
Thank you, Julianne. Chris.
Studies have routinely shown that doing this would hit hardest those that are trying to realize the American dream, that are trying to get the ability to get that first job, to get the leg in the door. And one of the things we know is there's always the unintended consequences. You know, I like to joke and say, because I'm an attorney, I like to say I'm educated. But you look at the arrogance that goes on in Washington, D.C. with some of the officials out there, because they think they're so educated that they can outthink the laws of economic reality. And that's the sad thing. They just keep micromanaging. It's like when you tell a lie, you gotta keep thinking, what was that lie? And it's like economics, you push one way and oh, it goes this way, you gotta push it this way, and they're so busy, but you know, it just doesn't work to have that management out of Washington DC. That state control does not work. And one of the things now Obama's doing is, what does he do? He has these economic zones. You know, he's doing so well for the economy, he wants to go off into the nation and help in different parts of the country because he's going to make it better. You know, here's the government, and I'm going to help you with your economy. And really what he's doing is he's picking winners and losers, but it never works when you micromanage in the economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Monty?
Isn't that interesting? I remember a hero of mine, Ronald Reagan. He said, I'm from the 9 words every American hates to hear. I'm from the government and I'm here to help. The equation is wrong. The question is actually incorrect. The question is, should we raise the minimum wage? That's not the question. The question is our money. I sat my 3 youngest children down and I pulled out a $20 gold double eagle from 1928 that was worth $20. I sat my children down and I pulled out a $20 bill out of my pocket. And I set the $20 bill down and I set down the $20 gold piece, which is now today worth about $1,600. And I said, which one would you want? Oh, I want the gold piece. Okay, now would you trade this paper for this piece of gold? My kids, my children, my youngest is, you know, he was 9 years old at the time. This was just a couple years ago. And he said, no. If a 9-year-old gets it, why can't the people in Washington get it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Monty. You're up next. The question is a yes/no question.
All right.
Do you support amnesty for illegal immigrants?
One word or two?
Yes, no.
Hell no.
I'm more polite. No.
Carol?
No. No amnesty. Never.
Philip?
No.
Julianne?
I would have voted no on the Senate bill.
Chris?
No.
Chris, you're up next. One more yes/no here. Do you support a national right-to-work law? Chris, do you support a national right-to-work law? Yes, no?
I'd have to look at what the legislation is.
Okay. Monty?
National right to work law, meaning, Jim, that you can work, you don't have to be part of the union. If you don't
That's
like
what
what's
right-
going on with the daycares in Minnesota?
Yes, but there's, I believe, 24 states that have, 23 or 24 states that have a right-to-work law. It was something that was looked at, I think recently by the Republicans, when the Republicans held the House in the Senate. It wasn't put up as a,
Yes, I would not be opposed to a right to work law. Somebody wants to work, they want
Okay.
a job, they don't want to work for a union, beautiful.
okay, Jim?
Is that one word?
Huh? Yeah,
A
well,
lot of things are state issues. This is one of those, those are, I have a list of those that belong at the state level. Thank you.
thank you, Jim. Harold?
Yes or no?
Should be a state decision. A state decision. It's a state decision, not a federal decision.
I agree with that. It should be a state decision, not a federal decision.
Philip?
Yes.
It's a state decision.
Yep, Julianne, you're up next. We're going to talk about one more here. I'm going to skip down to, this one is a 1-minute answer on education. What role, if any, should the federal government play in education, and what is your position on Common Core?
Oh, I don't support Common Core at all, and education should be locally determined. I am a mom. I have 4 children. Ray and I are lucky to have Raymond, Ellie, William, and Sam. They're 22, 21, 19, and 15, and they all needed something different growing up in terms of education. Parents should be encouraged to homeschool, to allow different types of education for their children. It should be what's needed in the best interests of the child and not what Washington wants for our children. And it seems to me when Washington gets involved or the state gets involved, what you end up with is students that aren't striving for excellence anymore. They're just striving to meet the lowest common denominator. So we want our children to strive for excellence. I think education should be determined at the local level, beginning with the family, and then with the school board. We don't need statewide mandates for education, and we don't need federal mandates for education. It is a very personal issue for each individual, and I hope that we will have that. I've worked very hard at tax credits for education in the state of Minnesota to allow families more of their money back if they are spending the money to educate their children. I think that's definitely the role of the future for education in Minnesota and across our country.
Thank you, Julianne. Chris?
Thank you. The federal government has no business in education. That's a state issue. And remember when I started this, I said you got to keep their feet to the fire, whether it's a Democrat or Republican. And you know, Bush was the same. Bush was No Child Left Behind, and then now it's Common Core. And so the issue is it's a state issue, and it has to be decided at the local level. The other thing is a lot of people will say the argument is why the federal government should get involved. Well, they can decide best practices. Well, what is it that goes on in Washington, D.C.? It's kind of like a Get Smart scenario where they put this cone of intelligence on, and some reason they know in Washington, D.C. better than we do here in Minnesota. And that's the problem. You're going to keep me hearing talking about state government because, you know, the best decisions are local. And why is that? Well, I know this as a county commissioner. If we make a bonehead decision, you throw us out of office. But how often does that happen in Washington, D.C.? They have an 8% approval rating, and yet 95% of them get reelected. So take the power from Washington, D.C. and bring it back to Minnesota. Let's set the table for Minnesota success.
Thank you, Chris. Monty?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think the first thing I would do, well, maybe not the first thing, but one of the things I would do is I would move to eliminate the NEA, the National Education Association. I think that is the first place to start. Secondly, education should be local. It should be something that is done right in your local community. It should not be run by a bunch of bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. And I think you, as a parent, know better what's for your children and your grandchildren better than any bureaucrat in Washington. Common Core, the two-letter, no.
Jim?
Well, thank you. Just ditto, the federal government has, it's a state thing. Just to give you my history of education, we have 6 boys. We homeschool for a while. We started a charter school, very successful. They graduated from public schools. And we have, I think people deserve a choice. All kids are different. And I helped when we were homeschooling, we helped to pass all out that the parent is the primary educator of their children. And that's absolutely true. At the end of the day, they're the responsible party. And I sat through the profile learning, if you remember that. We helped repeal that when I came into office in the late 90s. We were pretty proud about that. There's a whole deal. It's about power, and somebody else alluded to it. The joke about Obama and me wanting to run my life. The people on the left believe it's their duty and their responsibility to make sure your life goes like how they think it should be. They really believe it. The people in this room think, it's my life, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Carol?
The Department of Education should be eliminated and closed down. And the education will be and should be up to the local school districts and the school boards. And it's important that we realize that we're in a turning point in history, and we can make a difference. So stay involved and stay active. And you and I are able to pick up Uncle Sam, who's lying on the road, injured and hurt, and help him get up and chase that donkey away. And there's other things that they call them too. And then we'll be a much happier people and a much happier nation, and there will be a much happier world.
Thank you, Harold. Philip?
I taught school for 13 years. I'm a licensed administrator in Minnesota. I was the principal for 7. There is no place for the Federal Department of Education. As an administrator and as working with the State Department and also having meetings in the State Department of Education, I looked around me over those 20 years. I can't do math. 13 and 7, 20 years. That's scary, actually. And it's extremely insulting and disrespectful to all of us that someone in Washington thinks they know better how we can deliver a curriculum. First of all, when we're teaching, do we teach math or do we teach English? We teach children. We are decent, respectful people. We can teach our children without someone in Washington telling us how to do it. Does it make any sense to anyone that if we had every person that's in the Department of Education building, in the federal government, or even in the state government, having a job, never seeing a child, never touching a child's life, and all the money spent on them, does that make sense to you?
Philip, thank you. You're up next, Philip. We're going to do two yes/no questions, the final 1 minute here. That way we can get a couple other topics in here. We're getting short on time here. Philip, your yes/no question is, do you believe in man-made climate change?
Growing up on the farm.
It's a yes/no.
Oh, no.
Nope.
Julianne, that was quick. Chris?
No.
Monty?
No.
Actually, cows make a lot of methane.
I take that as a no. Harold?
Absolutely no.
All right. Harold, you're up next. This is the last yes/no question. Do you support a balanced budget amendment for the U.S. economy?
Yes or no?
Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Philip, do you support a balanced budget amendment?
Yes.
Julianne?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Monty?
Yes, I support a balanced budget amendment.
And Jim? Hang on, Monty. Did Jim answer?
Well, it has to be written carefully. Just be fewer yes or no on this question, but generally, yes.
Okay, Monty, you're going to start with the 1 minute closing. We started at this end with Jim on the opening back. That's a little different than we've been doing, but we'll work our way back for the one. Got to keep you guys on the toes. Okay, Monty.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you thank you. It's you that make America work. It's you that makes Minnesota work. It is you that changes things. You take one person and put them in the street, they'll get run over by a car. But you put enough people together in the street, and you'll stop traffic, you'll shut down the town, you can change things. And that change begins right here, right now. I want to let you know that I am a proud patriot. I'm a constitutional conservative, I'm a Reagan Republican. And I would not do anything to hurt your family, my family, or this country. And I believe we start with a balanced budget amendment. I think we work into term limits. I am absolutely for everything. You can look at that yellow piece of paper that's in your hands. You can go to my website, montymarino.com. I have some speeches on there. You can see exactly where I stand on these issues. There is no mixing of words. It is not a political message. You go ahead and go to Al Franken's website and try to get a message off that. It's a bunch of gobbledygook. You know where I stand. You know exactly where I stand. And there is no beating around the bush. And I want to let you know that I will be the next U.S. Senator, or one of these people sitting here will be the next U.S. Senator. Al Franken's guys go, let's restore America. Thank you very much, God.
Monty, 1 to 6. You're up next. You're coming back.
Well, thank you, and I do urge you to go to the precinct caucuses, and there's going to be a straw poll there, and I would really appreciate your support there. We can, common sense conservatives can win this. And you know what, sometimes, and I appreciate speaking before the Tea Party tonight, sometimes people try to label you and say you're the fringe, and I say, no way. You are mainstream Minnesota. And common sense conservatives can win this. But we have to put forward the individual that can have the right message. I'm running as a Republican, that's correct. But you have to be able to win the Reagan Democrats, the independents, and I can do that. I can connect in greater Minnesota, I can connect up on the range, I've been all across, and that's what's going to be the secret to beating Franken. One of the final things I wanted to say is there was a poll already done, and out of the candidates, I was within 10 points. I was the top candidate closest to Franken, 10 points. I have faith that this entire group, we are going to take Franken to task in this next year ahead. And that 10-point gap is going to be withdrawn all the way to negatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Only 9% of Americans approve of the work that Congress is doing. Are any of you in this room? I didn't think so. I didn't think so. You know, President Obama is not in charge. Al Franken isn't in charge. Who's in charge of our nation anyway? We are. There is no higher office in the nation than being a citizen. And so now it is time for you and I to put in more effort than ever before to take back our nation and take back our federal government. Do not be disillusioned. Don't be discouraged. If you are, they win. We are far more powerful and way more numerous than they realize. And I'm talking about the Washington insiders and the special interests. We ordinary, hardworking Minnesotans and Americans, we must take control of our federal government again, and we can do it beginning in this election. So please have heart, please have faith. We live under the greatest constitution in the greatest nation in history, and we can take it back. It was ordained that we will, and I ask you for your support and your help tonight. Thank you.
Are you ready to take our country back? Yes. Let's say it together. Are you ready to take our country back? Yes. We are going to restore this republic. We are going to restore it. There's no doubt. There's no other choice. Failure is not an option. I'm going to be that guy in the green pickup truck driving around Minnesota, one store at a time. And I'm going to ask for your vote. I have the deepest respect for you. I have the deepest respect for these great people. You, Jim, standing up. When we have people overseas, like myself, but I'm a humble guy. We have sailors and soldiers, airmen and Marines fighting to defend the Constitution. And we have to see the flag inverted. What does that mean to us? You know what it means. What does it mean? Yell it out.
Distress.
We're in distress. I'm an American soldier. You turn that flag upside down, I'm coming to shore, and I'm not leaving until it's straight.
In closing, there'll be a lot of people like such as tonight coming before you and urging you and making their case. And any of the people before you here would do a lot more terrific job than what we have now. They would, together with you, raise up, pick up Uncle Sam, and so Uncle Sam can start marching forward again and take care of our people at home. And thinking that we can be a savior.
Harold, hold the microphone up here. Yeah.
Rather than thinking that we can be a savior to all the world. So the people will be wooing you, they'll be making their case, they'll be enticing you to follow their lead. Good people. You will be tempted and swayed right up until election. But don't forget, and just remember, not only that I'm back in the saddle again, not only that it's time to have the good wine rather than the cheap whiskey, but remember, don't forget that words of another old time song, not real old, that says, ladies and gentlemen, darling, save the last dance for me. You are the future. And I'm Harold Shudlick. With your permission, support, and your vote, I will be honored to be your next United States Senator.
Thank you, Harold.
Government hasn't made America great. You have. The people who sired you, the people that come after you, that is the future of America. You have a choice to make. You've heard some great speakers up here. Now you want to ask two questions. Who's the most electable? Who can be the most effective when they get to Washington? Read my stuff over. I believe you'll see from the work I've done that I have the best way to get elected. I'm the most electable. And when I get to Washington, I've cut billions. I know how to cut trillions. I know how to get the Obamacare debacle as good as it can be, given what's left to work with, given the president's going to be there for 3 more years. We are a most blessed country. And I take that to heart. That's why I'm running. The word responsibility means you respond based upon your ability. That's why I'm running for this office. I'm going to work like a fiend, go all around Minnesota, been to 200 places already, more than anybody else. And I've been making 2 promises to people in my campaign. One is I'll work hard and do my best. Another is I'll always tell you the truth. And I mean that. God has been gracious to America, not always deserved, but I'm so happy that He has. People have paid in blood for the right to our freedom, and God continues to bless us. And I pray He continues to bless you and this great country of ours. And I ask for your vote, and I appreciate your vote, your support in November 4th, which is the only poll that matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. I'll wrap up the meeting. Hey, weren't they great? Weren't they great? Give them a round of applause. And I think every one of them made me laugh. It was fun. It was a fun night for me.